Hi friend, Megan here. Today we're going to talk about some practical tools for triggers. So what's a trigger? A trigger is a moment when our emotions sort of feel like they're taking over and we feel a bit out of control. So this is really useful for ourselves, but also for holding space for other people, whether it's a child or a friend or a partner. So the trigger moment is a moment when we go into survival mode and we're really in a state of reaction. And usually that reaction can be a place that's fight, flight, or freeze. And it can go into appease or fawn, which is kind of a people pleasing. But for the really, really out of control ones, it usually goes into fight, flight, and freeze. So what's fight? Fight is the moment when you want to start a fight with somebody. When you are sort of poking or wanting to fix it, like, we're going to talk about this right now because you did this and you did that. And while that's something we might want to do, it might not be helpful. The other one is kind of stonewalling or running away or avoiding, shutting down, numbing out, getting disembodied or disassociated. That tends to be the freeze or the flight, And the freeze is when we just feel kind of absolutely paralyzed. And that's the stuck moment. So when are we feeling triggered? Sometimes it's, a fight that's happened a lot of times and a pattern that gets really uncomfortable. And sometimes it's something out of the blue. For me personally, it was certain things that happened out of sexual abuse where I wouldn't even know, and it would be the way the wind would touch my face and I would sort of spin out. Or when you start talking about a bad memory, sometimes that can also bring up that same trauma response. But it's when we're in that state of reaction and we're not clear-headed. So in that moment, I say, stop. Stop what you're doing for a moment, if you can catch yourself, and breathe. We can live without food and water for a decent amount of time, but without breath, we've got a couple minutes. So it's so important and so simple. And the way that I would say it helps me most with the breathing exercise is a long inhale through the nose, and slower exhale through the nose. Now, a lot of times we want to pant. That's usually when our mouth is open. And that can actually further the trigger response. So if you can try your best to breathe through the nose, and I almost see it like a circle, that it's no end, no beginning. Instead of a sharp up and down. And the other thing is that I want to explain a bit about breathing into something. I say that a lot. Breathing into means kind of visualizing the air filling a certain place. So sometimes you need to cool down your head, breathe into your head and watch the steam almost release. Sometimes I find it most helpful to breathe into my heart and my stomach. So I'll watch my whole chest kind of expand in all directions. And feel free to breathe with me now. And then the other one is stomach. You feel your stomach almost expand. You can even push it out a little. And at the end, you want to watch it relax, relax. So that helps stop the response. Sometimes we're not there, and that's okay. If it's a really severe trigger, one of the things that I learned through the years is to come back to the senses. So that's touch, taste, smell, feel, and hear. And so certainly we do have more senses than that, but those are the ones that help bring us back to the present moment. And that one is, I like touch a lot, where I'll grab something kind of heavy and textural and I'll roll it in my hands. smell is a really powerful one too for triggering memories. So if you have like a calming essential oil or something, like a lavender or a chamomile, something really calming and soothing, sometimes if you just put a little drop in your hand and take a couple deep inhales with your hand cupped over, that can be really, really helpful. The other one is sound, to turn on some music and really be with the music and listen to the music and be brought back to the moment with the music. The other thing that can help when someone else is having a trigger is a really quick shift of energy. Something kind of surprising, different, maybe kind of funny. Sometimes when someone's having a trigger, I'll do like a goofy dance, and I know it's a little annoying in the moment, but it's just a way to shift the energy from the spin cycle down in the reaction to coming back. And a quick energy shift can do that. Even sometimes a loud noise. Like if someone who is on the autistic scale, you don't want to do that because it can be extra overwhelming. And I can do a whole post about special sensitivities with autism. Because my middle boy Liam and my husband are both on the autistic scale. But for now, touch, taste, smell, feel, hear. Those things can be really helpful to bring us back to that moment. The whole thing that we want to try to get to during that moment is what I call the I observe state. It's the neutral state. It's the non-reactive state. And it's more about staying centered and balanced, which is really hard in those moments. But that first breathe and then get into the actual touch, taste, feel, all of that stuff is what can help us come back to that I observe state. So sometimes even when I'm in the moment, I'll start to observe my emotions. So I'll say, I observe that I'm feeling completely overwhelmed. I observe that I'm feeling really resentful and angry right now. And just by naming the emotion and doing it from an observation state, I find I don't get as sucked in and controlled by the emotion, but it's sort of looking at it from a little bit farther above. So I'll get into another one about all of the different emotions that we can start to explore, but naming the emotions can be really, really helpful just to recognize it and just to validate it. And you know, you can talk back to that one and say, it's okay that I'm feeling really angry right now. I feel like there's an injustice or a fear. So that stuff can help us click back into the present moment and stay in the observation state. So once we're in the observation state, one of the things that I find really helpful, and this might not be for everybody, and all of these, take them or leave them, whatever resonates with you, but I find that writing can be really, really helpful to take all those spinning thoughts, kind of getting all mixed up and jumbled up in our head. It does this thing where it focuses it and it linearizes it and it just gets it out. So I had a hard time with writing because I kind of had in my mind that I had to write for an audience, and so therefore I was filtering and what if anybody ever finds this? So I did my best to be as honest as I could, no matter where I was, write exactly what was coming through. Really just get it out. Not like no judgment, no one's gonna read it, just to be able to get it out of the mind, out of the confused, jumbly state, and into a physical form. It's black and white or whatever color. And I do say that it's kind of nice. I have like a special notebook. I call it my brain because I put a lot of stuff in there. And actually it gets to another point of like, you don't have to have 10 different notebooks, your trigger notebook, your dream notebook, your things to do. It gets a little overcomplicated. I like to simplify it and have it in one. The other thing is there's something about physically touching pen and paper that's really helpful, more so than the screen kind of glaring back at us in those forms. Having your own writing can be really cathartic, and the physical aspect of it can be really cathartic. So feel free to write out your thoughts. And certainly if someone's there to it's nice to be able to reflect and talk to someone, but it tends to be that they need to be more of a neutral person. And if it is a person triggering you, that's not always a useful thing to try to get it all out with the person that's kind of in that reaction pattern where sometimes it can escalate. So be wise about venting with somebody that's safe. So during the writing part, and during if you don't want to write and it's more of a mental process, one of the things that helps me is getting into questions. So after I get it all out, I ask myself some questions. And there's, the who, what, when questions, which are really helpful. But I find that the why and the how are how I dig under the surface and how I go deeper. And it's one of the first questions we ask as humans when we hit like 3, 4, 5. Why? And it's a really profound question. So when you're going through it, why am I having this moment? Well, I feel really scared. Why do you feel really scared? I don't know. Why do you not know? I don't know. If you get there, take a breath and do another couple long, deep breaths in the heart and just ask again, why am I feeling scared? And sometimes memories will pop up, so listen to your intuition, listen to the memories, don't invalidate anything popping up, and just be really honest. And more times than not, the questions help us get a little deeper past that surface level thing to really what's that mechanism underneath creating that reaction. So that is, it's been really, really helpful, and it tends to go productive, once you start asking the questions, well then what do I want to do next? How do I want to solve this? What are the options? Then you can get into the what's. The how is also kind of like, how did I get here? How can I resolve this? So feel free to go a few layers. If you're not getting kind of that immediate response, that's okay. For a lot of times we ignored ourselves and our instincts and impulses, and so this is allowing ourselves to go there, to go deeper and find out. And I use the word curious exploration rather than force. And sometimes I don't get the answers right away, but just by asking the questions, it gets my head in the space of thinking about them. So those are some of the things that I use, I would say on a daily basis, really, to help me process and get through some of those hard times. The other thing I want to say is that we are not alone. You are not alone. And that sometimes we need to ask for help. And there is no shame in that. We are all a human family. And we don't have to go through it alone. We don't have to suffer alone. So it is okay to ask for help. It is wise to ask for help sometimes. And help can come in the form of many things. There is therapy available. There is online therapy available, coaching. And then there's things outside of the Western model, which are kind of the family constellations, which bridges from the Western into some of the more spiritual practices. There can be a wise friend that you really look up to that gives you honest feedback. I would say the biggest thing is that you want to find a place where you can be honest and feel not judged and feel safe and feel heard. And so just through being held in that space, a lot can come up and be resolved. So you are not alone, and it is okay to ask for help. And we are in a day and age where there is not nearly as much judgment for doing those things. And certainly there's books and there's resources. So also feel free to do some research on whatever you're struggling with. That's been a really helpful process for me, is, looking up love addiction, which was a good one for me, and finding out where that comes from, looking up ideas to build self-esteem, whatever those things are that you're looking for. There are a lot of resources out there. And then another aspect of asking for help, and this one may be for you and may not, but I find asking for some sort of higher power, higher guidance in the form of prayer or intention can be astounding. So sometimes I don't know what the solution is, and I don't know how to get clarity. So I'll pray and put it out there. Universe, bring me clarity. I'm asking for help. Bring me the right tools or medicine that I need right now. And then I go to sleep. And I trust that something will come in, and I try to keep my ears and eyes open to see what those opportunities are. There's sort of a funny story about God knocking on the door, but it doesn't look like God, so you kind of shut it. So it might come in the form of something that's a bit unexpected, but that's where the synchronicities and magic are. So stay open-minded to where those solutions can come from. So those are my kind of basic 101 tools for getting through a trigger and getting through that moment when you feel out of control or in despair or hopeless. And if you're there, I want to say an extra special I love you and a hug, because I know it's not fun, but there is light on the other side, and you're here investigating and doing some work to get on the other side. So stay hopeful and keep on trucking. All right, so those are my tools for today. I love you very much. Big hug from Peru. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I will say, if you want to keep up on these things, feel free to subscribe, ding the bell, or comment. It is nice to see who's here. So, have a good day, good night. See you next time.